Barry Jenkins once again takes over cinema and turns it into something really beautiful and breathtaking. Jenkins took James Baldwin's If Beale Street Could Talk novel and made it into an appealing work of art that would make Baldwin really proud. Within this story, we are faced with race, gender, and also a little religion. Race holds a major part of the story because of discrimination that African Americans in the city of Harlem, New York, have to face, but Jenkins lightens it with the story between Fonnie and Tish. Fonnie is accused of raping this Puerto Rican woman that has fled back to Puerto Rico, probably told to as a deal to accuse Fonnie for this assault. According to Brian Norman, Beale Street marks a turning point in Baldwin's career. He moves away from the stories of interaction between black and white characters and focuses almost exclusively on African American life and history and a story about black heterosexual love. This is very important because society automatically thinks that this is a story about white versus black, but this story is based on all versions of love and how especially black love between a man and woman, family, and friends can overpower the mishaps going on in their community. Most African American movies have displayed violence and assaults upon the people, but Barry Jenkins focuses mostly on Fonnie and Tish and their family. We view the world as black and white, but Baldwin wrote this story to produce color in the community. Not only color of skin, but color of hope. Jenkins did this by shooting dolly shots that established the community of Beale Street and the color that is intertwined in the story. Fonnie and Tish's love is so unconditional and pure that the audience can witness security, courtesy, and devotion. Security is a big thing with Fonnie as he feels obligated to protect and provide for Tish at all times. First, Fonnie finds this loft for them to live in together. At first, Tish contemplates the place, but Fonnie proves that he can make it feel like a home for both of them. Fonnie's masculinity really shows this protection that I mentioned earlier. When Tish is verbally assaulted by a white man, Fonnie pulls him away from Tish and kicks him until he runs away. Fonnie is confronted by a white police officer that threats to take him to jail for assault and battery. Tish speaks up for Fonnie to protect his alibi and prevent him from being arrested. Fonnie afterwards confronts Tish to not protect him and let him protect her instead. Fonnie says that Tish protecting him is not the same and becomes very frustrated about the situation. Fonnie feels that she shouldn't have to protect him because he knows that she loves him. But as a man, he needs to protect his woman, as this is how most black men raised by nurturing women, is to protect themselves and their female loved ones. This transitions into how Fonnie could not be the one to rape the Puerto Rican woman Veronica. If we see that Fonnie is protective over Tish, then why would he sexually assault this young woman?
We've known Fonnie all his life.
This explains how race discrimination affects Fonnie's masculinity from the morals he has learned throughout his life are ignored and turns him into this horrible, disgusting black man. According to Brian Norman, Tish's subsequent narration of Fonnie's imprisonment helps her to make sense of U.S. racism in a world that would not cherish their love. The audience knows that Fonnie is a virtuous man that will not put a hand on any woman in an appropriate or harmful way. African American men are viewed as aggressive monsters, but this story and the narration of Tish explains why Fonnie is a respectable man. So to hit a little bit more on gender, we go into when Tish's mother, Sharon, flies to Puerto Rico to help her daughter prove Fonnie's innocence by convincing Veronica to confess that Fonnie didn't rape her. Sharon shows her a picture of both Fonnie and Tish so she can feel some kind of sympathy and to remember that it wasn't him that raped her. Sharon doesn't think at first that she is talking to a woman like herself because Veronica tells her this.
One thing I can tell, lady, you ain't never been raped.
Sharon realizes that she is right and cannot relate to her situation as a woman, but tries to relate to her as a person of color. Sharon has nothing else to do but to bring in her religion, which was challenged in the beginning of the film. When Tish told Fonny's family that she was pregnant with his baby, she was immediately judged, unlike her own family that supported her. Fonny's mother, Mrs. Hunt, doesn't accept this as the Christian she calls herself to be, and curses the baby in Tish's womb because of conceiving before marriage. But Chris Williams says some people react like Mrs. Hunt, pushing their children and others away in order to remain sincere in their beliefs. Others may go the opposite direction by compromising their religious beliefs in order to support their children. Our temptation is to judge the relationship in black and white, much like Mrs. Hunt. There is, after all, the immorality of having sex before marriage. But what about all of the truth and goodness of their love for one another? What about the child who deserves a loving home and caring family? In short, if Beale Street Could Talk illustrates that life is not black and white, and if one has only a black and white framework to work from, then fear and insecurity rear their ugly heads. This film all but insists that there has to be another way. Jenkins is good at acknowledging both Fonny's imprisonment and Veronica's sexual assault so that we can touch on how these systems defranchise women and people of color. Despite the despair that the characters are going through, Jenkins creating this love story by empowering the system cinematically through emotion and color comes across clearly on the screen.
You ready for this?
I've never been more ready for anything in my whole life.